Mike Hall was never supposed to be a TV star. Long before Netflix cameras rolled into the mountains of British Columbia, he was just a rugged, grease-covered mechanic with a wild dream and a yard full of rusting cars that looked more like a scrapyard than a treasure chest. But to Mike, every dented fender and decaying hood told a story about passion, perseverance, and obsession. To his neighbors in Tappan, he was Rust Valley Mike, the eccentric guy with hundreds of cars piled across acres of land, always talking about fixing them up one day. But the world had no idea who he was, until Rust Valley restorers turned him into a cult icon. When the show premiered in 2018, viewers around the globe fell in love with his big heart, rugged charm, and signature dreadlocks. Mike wasn't like your typical reality TV mechanic. He wasn't in it for fame or fortune. He was chasing nostalgia, trying to breathe life back into cars that the world had given up on, just like people often give up on their dreams. But what looked like a dream come true on screen was hiding a storm of chaos behind the scenes. And now, years later, the question fans are asking is chilling. What really happened to Mike Hall? Why did he suddenly vanish from the spotlight? And what's the heartbreaking truth about his life after Rust Valley restorers? To understand that, we have to go back to where it all began. Before the cameras, before the fame, back when Mike Hall was just another working-class guy grinding his way through Canada's construction industry. Mike was a rock blaster by trade, spending decades blowing through mountains to make roads and tunnels. It was dangerous, back-breaking work, but it paid well, and Mike poured every dollar he could into his one true obsession: collecting classic cars. It started small, just a few old models parked behind his shop, but soon it spiraled into something massive. By the time Rust Valley restorers began filming, Mike had over 400 cars scattered across his property. Locals thought he was crazy. Even his family didn't understand why he kept buying more. But to Mike, those cars were his history, his escape, his legacy, and maybe even his curse. Because over time, that passion began to consume him. He admitted in interviews that he was tired of the grind, tired of fixing machines that no one else cared about. He tried to sell the whole property once for $1.19 million, listing it as a car collector's dream. No one bought it. Instead, Netflix did something even crazier. They gave him a show. When Rust Valley restorers hit screens, Mike Hall became an instant fan favorite. His laid-back attitude, wild hair, and emotional honesty made him the beating heart of the series. Viewers weren't just watching cars get restored. They were watching a man try to hold onto his dream while everything around him crumbled. His longtime friend Avery Schoaf brought humor, while his son Connor added a touch of family tension and youthful energy. Together, they became the trio that made Rust Valley restorers so addictive. But behind the laughter, things weren't as fun as they seemed. Running a restoration business is brutal. Parts are expensive, deadlines are tight, and TV producers want drama. Mike's perfectionism and huge heart often worked against him. He couldn't say no to a project, even when it was a financial disaster. He once said, "I'm not good at making money, I'm good at spending it." That honesty made him relatable, but it was also the root of his downfall. As the show gained global fame, the pressure mounted. Netflix wanted more seasons, more builds, more deadlines. The shop became a production set, and Mike's dream started to feel like a burden. The stress took its toll, emotionally, financially, even physically. His construction background had already battered his body, and long hours in the garage didn't help. Meanwhile, local taxes on his property skyrocketed, and every car that didn't sell was another weight on his shoulders. Mike once joked that his yard was like a retirement plan that went wrong. But it wasn't just money that was breaking him. It was the changing meaning of his passion. What used to be a quiet love for restoration had turned into a high-pressure, camera-driven circus. Then came the rumors. Whispers that the shop was struggling, that Mike wanted out, that the relationships between the crew were starting to fracture. Avery's easygoing nature sometimes clashed with Mike's intensity. Connor, trying to carve his own path, started focusing on his own projects. Fans noticed that in later seasons, Mike seemed quieter, more reflective, even distant. The sparkle in his eyes had dimmed. In one haunting moment, he admitted, "I'm getting old. I can't do this forever." It felt like a farewell speech disguised as a joke. The truth is, by the time Rust Valley Restorers was in its later seasons, Mike was facing a financial and emotional breaking point. The fame that once felt validating now felt hollow. He wasn't in control anymore, the network was. Behind closed doors, Mike was also struggling with loss. Longtime friends had passed away, health concerns were catching up, and the weight of years of physical labor was crushing him. People close to him say he often talked about legacy, about what would happen to his yard when he was gone. And in a strange twist of fate, his dream yard had become his prison. He couldn't sell it, couldn't leave it, couldn't let it go. It was too much a part of who he was. So when fans noticed Mike pulling back from the spotlight, posting less, and appearing tired in interviews, many feared the worst. By 2022, the show's future was uncertain. Rumors spread that Mike had quietly retired, or that Netflix had shifted focus to other series. Mike himself hinted that he was ready to slow down, saying that he'd rather live in peace than die chasing deadlines. Some fans thought he'd finally sold part of his collection. Others believed he was battling illness. In truth, Mike Hall had done what few reality stars ever do. He walked away before the fame completely destroyed him. He wanted his life back. He wanted to stand in his yard and see cars, not contracts. He wanted to remember why he fell in love with restoration in the first place. Today, Mike lives quietly in Tappan, still surrounded by his beloved cars, but with far fewer cameras. Occasionally, he appears in interviews or at car events, smiling that familiar grin, but you can sense something deeper in his eyes. A man who gave everything to his dream and paid a heavy price for it. Rust Valley Restorers turned him into a legend, but legends often carry pain behind the applause. Fans who visit the yard say it's hauntingly beautiful, rusted frames glinting in the sun, weeds curling around the memories of a lifetime. Mike once said that every car he owned was a piece of history waiting to be saved. Maybe that's true of him too. Maybe the real restoration story isn't about chrome or steel. It's about a man trying to rebuild himself after fame nearly tore him apart. For millions who watched him on Netflix, Mike Hall was more than a mechanic. He was a symbol of authenticity in a world obsessed with fake drama. He never played a role, he was the role. That's why his disappearance hit fans so hard. He represented every dreamer who ever worked themselves to exhaustion trying to make something beautiful. And when he finally vanished from TV, it wasn't a scandal or a downfall. It was simply a man choosing peace over performance. Mike's story is a reminder that even heroes of the garage need rest. His legacy isn't in the number of cars he restored but in the way he made people believe in second chances, for themselves, for forgotten dreams, and for old machines left behind. As of now, Rust Valley Restorers remains one of the most beloved car restoration shows in the world. Reruns continue to pull in millions of views, and fans still ask one haunting question: will Mike ever return? The answer remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: he doesn't need to. His work, his laughter, his struggles, they've already left a mark deeper than any dented fender. And maybe that's the beauty of his story. It was never about fame, money, or recognition. It was about a man who loved something so deeply that he gave it everything he had. In the end, that love cost him nearly everything, but it also made him unforgettable. Mike Hall once said, "You can't put a price on passion." And now, as he lives quietly among the ghosts of his Rust Valley, that line feels more like prophecy than philosophy. The world saw a man covered in grease and dust, but those who looked closer saw an artist, one who painted with metal, memory, and time. And though the cameras are gone, the spirit of Rust Valley Restorers Rust Valley Restorers lives on in every dreamer who believes that even the most broken things can be brought back to life. Because that's what Mike Hall taught us. That rust isn't the end. It's just the beginning. This is Hollywood Vault 8 AM, where we uncover the stories fame tried to bury. If you felt this one deep in your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because the truth behind your favorite stars and shows is often more real, raw, and human than Hollywood ever wants you to see.